Gender identity is an issue facing many teenagers today. With the high media coverage, Callum has a special report on attitudes to LGBT here at Bodmin College and in the UK.
Hello, my name is Callum David Bridger and I'm here to speak to you about the LGBT attitude and awareness and a bit of perspective. For the past 5 years, society has been attempting to grow into the new phrase LGBTQIA++. This stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual, questioning, intersexual, asexual and/or allied. 5 years ago, if you asked someone to tell you what LGBTQIA meant, they would not be able to tell you. First off, here's a few fun facts on the LGBTQ++ community. Only 1.5% of the UK has come out as LGBTQ. It was found that those aged between 16 and 24 were the most likely to say that they were homosexual, lesbian or bisexual. 2.7% of them did, a proportion that steadily declines as you inch up the age scale. However, there really are some scary facts involved with this topic. For example, 1 in 5 LGBTQ people have experienced a hate crime or incident due to their sexual orientation and/or gender identity in the last 12 months. In Nigeria, 98% of said that homosexuality should not be accepted, whereas in Spain, 88% said that homosexuality should be accepted. Here in Bodmin College, the attitudes towards LGBT members are being shown as acceptable and the same as everyone else. For example, there is a certain student here who came out as transsexual and changed their name. They felt more comfortable with this name and the school took notice of this, so they legally changed their name on the registers. There is also a weekly group on where LGBT members can meet up to explain struggles and just be with people who understand how they feel. First off, we're starting with an interview with Mrs. Phillips, an English teacher of Bodmin College. Hello, Ms. Phillips.
Hello.
So, I got a few questions here for you, if you don't mind asking. First off, what precisely is your sexuality?
So, that's a big question. So, I would identify as bisexual. I've previously had relationships with men, and I'm currently obviously in a marriage with a woman.
Okay, and when you first found out you were bisexual, and you told your friends and family, what was their reactions?
Okay, I had quite a lot of differing reactions. My friends were very supportive. I played women's rugby at the time, so I had a lot of friends that were lesbians or bisexuals. So I was in a community that was very encouraging of me to come out. My mum was amazing. She was absolutely brilliant. She was so supportive. She said, if you are happy, then I am happy. My sisters, I've got 2 sisters, they were both very, very supportive. They were really, really keen to support me. My father found it very difficult. He's of a generation that is quite stuck in his ways. He was worried about what people would think of me. He was worried about what people would think of him. I did have quite a bad experience with my dad. He refused to speak to me to start with when I came out, and I was 27. I'm 32 now, and I came out when I was 27, and he really, really struggled with it. Subsequently, he has come round to it. He gave a really lovely Father of the Bride speech at my wedding, so my relationship with my father is much better now, but it did take him a long time to get used to the idea.
And what is your current view on how society sees the LGBT community?
My experience has been a really positive one. Aside from my father, everyone who he was worried about telling has been really supportive. All of my family have been really supportive. My extended family have been really supportive, and I've had, I'm generally visible at school. I'm out. I have a Stonewall poster in my classroom. I'm visible. I talk about my wife, and the response that I've had from students has been across the board positive. I've never had a negative experience in a classroom with a student regarding my sexuality.
Awesome. So could you tell us how you found out you were bisexual?
Like I said, I was playing rugby in a ladies rugby team, and I started to develop feelings for one of the players that was one of my friends on the team. And as a result of those feelings, that's how I realised that I was attracted to women as well as attracted to men.
Ah, so also are you going on any events at all with your wife? Or?
We went to Plymouth Pride last year. We met our local councillor, our local MP is Luke Pollard in Plymouth, and he is out. He is an out gay man. So we feel really positively represented in Parliament because our MP is out. And I've got a lot of friends that are allies, and they came with us to Plymouth Pride, and so we try and be as visible as possible, because my wife is a teacher as well, and try and make sure that, you know, we are seen as being we're not shying away from our sexuality at all, and we're trying to be visible, and we're trying to be supportive of others that are perhaps struggling to come out or finding it difficult in some way.
So thank you for coming to the interview. Have you got anything else to say to the viewers?
If you are having problems, if you are struggling to come out, if you feel like there isn't enough support for you, online there is a huge community. Stonewall is a really, really good place for support for LGBT issues, so you're not alone.
Thank you very much for coming, Mrs. Phillips.
Thank you very
It's been
much.
a major help for getting part of my point across.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
I have a lovely day.
And you.
Oh my lord.
So, thank you Ada for coming. First of all, what exactly is your sexuality?
Well, I'm still trying to find out my sexuality and my gender preference, but right now I know that I am asexual.
Okay, so what is asexual?
Asexual, like what people have confused with asexual is where you don't want to like date people, but what it actually is you don't get turned on.
So what is your gender identity?
Well, my gender identity kinda like ended up knowing, but it's like transgender.
Oh, what is transgender?
Where someone isn't the gender they were assigned at birth.
So what did you start off as and become?
Well, mentally I am a dude, but most of my life I've been called a woman. But since I've come out, I can feel more comfortable by knowing that I am a guy.
So what is your view on how society sees the LGBTQIA++ community?
Well, my view of what society thinks of the community is definitely a lot more accepting nowadays than like what they used to be. But what I think people are struggling with is like how to accept the fact that people have a different gender to what they can see, and their sexuality isn't like straight, like what some people may be brought up to believe in. And it's like, it depends like how they were raised. Like they can either be raised to hate it, or like what didn't like get taught about it. Or
So how did you find out about you being transgender and asexual?
well, when I was younger, I ended up just being like not like the rest of the girls. Like they cared about like being careful or sitting indoors. I just loved to run around outside playing mud, and that brought me to believe I was a tomboy for a while. But then I realised later on how I was still more masculine. And then when I learned about the community, I was just like, oh, I put research into this. And when I found out about transgender, I was reading about what it's like, and I was just like, damn, that me.
Okay, so do you have any struggles at all?
I think my main struggle is how my mum is reacting. Like, while she is accepting, she's still stuck to the fact, like, that I am her daughter and how she constantly uses my dead name. but I know it's going to be hard for her because she has raised a daughter for 13 years.
I see. Are you going to any events at all?
Hopefully later on this year my sister will be driving and she'll take me to the Pride Parade in Newquay or Plymouth.
Okay. So thank you for coming. Thank you for answering the questions, getting my point across. Do you have anything else to say to the viewers?
Don't feel afraid to talk to people. It's better than keeping it bottled up and worrying about the choice you're about to make and if it's truly who you are.
Computer science and engineering is one of the fastest growing industries in the country. Many of our students are attending the Big Bang Fair. Liam tells us more.
If you want to show a 17 to 19-year-old how what they learn at schools is used in real people in real jobs, register to bring them to the Big Bang Fair at the NSC Birmingham. The fair gives young people the chance to hear from inspiring engineers and scientists from some of the UK's biggest companies and find out the opportunities available in science and engineering. The Big Bang Fair is an exceptional education event enjoyed by visitors of all ages. In 2017, 92% of visiting 11 to 14-year-olds enjoyed the fair and 80% learnt a lot from visiting, and 40% of young visitors used the opportunity to speak to someone about careers. I was lucky enough to visit the Big Bang Fair this year, and it was very interesting. I got to create a vehicle out of Vex. I got to play a virtual reality game where I had to collect light bulbs to power homes, which I won. And I saw climbing walls, fake autopsies, shower karaoke, and close-up of ticks and maggots. I had a great day and would recommend the fair to anyone interested in science or technology.
Hello, I am Jacob from the school report for Bodmin from the college, and I found a stand and someone to ask questions. So this is different.
Hi, my name's Nikki Redfern and I work for Highways England. So Jacob's asked me, why am I here? So I'm here to represent Highways England, to show lots of students and teachers what we do at Highways England. So we manage the strategic road network, and our stand's about showing people that. We've got a simulator, we've got some maths experiments, and we've got some Minecraft to show how you can build a bridge and how it has to be safe, to be able to put vehicles over it, because we do a lot of that here at Highways England. So we want to teach people about the things that we do, how to influence traffic, and like the work that we do to build new roads or maintain the current roads, and also talk about apprenticeships. We've got some stuff here, perfectly shown by Jacob. There we go. Some information on apprenticeships, so that if anyone wants to take a different route rather than going to university, looking at apprenticeships and grad schemes. So enjoy the Big Bang, and I hope you had a good day.
Finding out about some of the celebrations going on to honour women.
It was announced on April 4th, 2017 that Hazel Reeves, one of the best sculptors in the UK, was going to be making a 7-foot statue of Emily Pankhurst. Emily Pankhurst was the leader of the suffragettes and died on the 14th of June 1928. Emily Pankhurst was the person that got women the right to vote. This statue is going to be placed in a small West Sussex village. This will be the second statue of Emily Pankhurst and her daughter Christabel, as the first one stands at the entrance of Victoria Tower Gardens in Westminster. This memorial statue will be unveiled on the 8th of March 2019, which is International Women's Day. Emmeline Pankhurst was born on the 14th of July 1858. Emmeline died on the 14th of June 1928. She dies at the age of 69, shortly after women and men had got equal rights. Andrew Simcock, who chaired the campaign fighting for the statue, said the lack of women had sparked people into action. He also said, as a radical city with a strong female figures, it was wrong that our public art does not reflect this part of Manchester's heritage. Hazel Reeves said it was long overdue in this city with a rich history of women activism. Manchester is going to have an Emmeline Pankhurst statue in February next year.
Well, I'd like to think it was my idea, but it's not. Emmeline is a real hero of mine. But Andrew Simcock, who's a councillor in Manchester, he was in a meeting with a friend in the Manchester Town Hall where there's loads of marble busts of men, and his friend said, well, where are all the busts and the statues of women? And there's only one in Manchester, Queen Victoria, and so Andrew thought, right, maybe I'll do something about it, and so he did. Well, she's a real hero of Manchester. She was born in Moss Side, a part of Manchester, and so she's very close to their heart. There's a real history of political activism in Manchester, and they actually had a vote, and so they put forward, I think, 12 different women, including her daughters Christabel and Sylvia, but Emmeline came out top of the vote. So they decided if they're going to raise the funds for a statue, it had to be of Emmeline. And so that's the point that when I came in and started competing for the commission. Yeah. Well, it's behind me now. Let's have a look. It's all metal at the moment. So there's no clay. That's the next part of the process. This is called the armature. It's a French word for frame and model. So this is basically I build a rather large Emmeline in metal. So you'll see that there's a very strong scaffolding, and so this will have to support over probably half a ton of clay, which it's hard to imagine what half a ton of clay is. So hopefully they'll be very much part of the process as I carry on doing social media and Twitter and so on, the progress. They've been really keen so far. The public did vote on the design, so this is, you would have seen Emmeline. Now, where's she here? 6 of us competing, and that was my design. Emmeline atop a chair in the middle of a street, urging women to rise up and demand the vote. Or really will love it once it's bigger. So that's, if you times that, it's 40 centimetres high. If you times that by 6.5 times, that's the mathematics involved, then you end up with a large piece behind me. So hopefully if they like it small, they'll love it big. Yeah.
Pollution is an international worry, but in Cornwall the plastic pollution in the ocean and our beaches is particularly concerned. Here with more on the story is Izzy.
In our oceans there is currently over 50 trillion pieces of small plastic weighing in at over 265,000 tonnes. Adding on to this factor the idea that a piece of litter in the ocean can last as little as 50 years. A plastic bottle can last up to 450 years, and fishing equipment can take over 600 years to completely be broken down. 2/3 of the plastic that is found in our oceans comes from towns and cities where people drop their litter on the ground and not in the bins. This affects Cornwall quite a bit because of plastic bags, plastic straws, etc., which can trap themselves in either on a creature's head or itself stuck in its throat and leave our sea-dwelling creatures unable to breathe.
Now we go to Charlie for a Nintendo review.
In the 1980s, Nintendo has been one of the biggest brands in gaming, and in recent years, partly thanks to a rise in retro culture, Nintendo games have again been getting a lot of good press. But what is the best game? For me, it comes down to 3 front runners: Splatoon 2, Mario Odyssey, and Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. What I like about them is their unique styles of play. Like in Splatoon 2, there's customization abilities and different weapons for you to use, and make your own unique skills with certain weapons. Mario Odyssey is good if you like Nintendo's main mascot, and Japanese folklore, because in the game Mario can throw his hat at certain creatures and take them over and control them. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, it has quite a unique style compared to previous titles in the Legend of Zelda series, because in Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, you're in an open area much vaster than Hyrule fields in previous games. You have to climb, hunt, cook, craft weapons, and especially defeat bosses, dungeons, and solve puzzles. But my favourite out of these three has to be Splatoon 2. And this has been my review on these three Nintendo games. This is Charlie, signing out.
Learning difficulties range in a severity of effects. Matthew has a special report for us on autism.
Autism is a lifelong developmental disability that affects how people perceive the world and interact with others. Autistic people see, hear and feel the world differently to other people. The pressures of everyday life changes on a day-to-day basis. For example, when an autistic person is walking down the street, they might hear things really loud, and they may hear lots of different things that you might say, oh, it's just a dog barking, but for an autistic person, it's really loud. Also, in a classroom, if it is really loud in the room, then an autistic person may get overwhelmed. If you are autistic, you are autistic for life. Autism is not an illness or a disease, and it cannot be cured. Often people feel being autistic is a fundamental aspect of their own identity. Autism is a spectrum of disabilities, mental health issues or other conditions, meaning people need different levels of support. I use my peas in a pod to cope, and also I use a jumble cube. These are coping strategies, and these help me because if I get anxious or annoyed, my anxiety will start, and these things really help me. All people on the autistic spectrum learn and develop skills to cope with their own individual condition. With the right sort of support, all can be helped to live a more fulfilling life of their own choosing. I'm here with the Senko at Bodmin College, Mr. McGovern. How does autism affect classroom life?
Well, with everybody's different, and some differences are easy to see, so eye colour, height, hair colour, but there are other differences that aren't so easy to see. So what one student might find easy, other students might find quite difficult. So some students are really into maths, other students are really into music and art. But then at the same time, there are other things that some students might find really easy, like making friends or being able to communicate easily. So really, autism in the classroom is it's made up of a number of different differences that people find really difficult.
So how do Bodmin College support autistic children?
So here at Bodmin College, we have a fantastic team of support staff. Firstly, all of our teachers are aware of autism and the challenges that it can cause for certain students. So the first thing is that all of our teachers are fully aware of what autism is and more importantly those students that autism affects. For some students who need additional help and further support, we have two fantastic autism champions. So they are highly trained in autism and they'll meet with students on a regular basis, and what they'll do is they'll be able to work through strategies. There'll be a first port of call for students if they're having difficulties. They can go and talk through any difficulties they have. We have designated safe spaces where students can go if they're feeling particularly anxious or having difficulties. Making adjustments in the classroom, so for some students where they're sat in the class can make a real difference. It could be actually to try and block out any distractions. It could be even to do with wearing headphones in a classroom to try and block out any outside noise. So we try and do as much as we can to firstly know the student and know what difficulties they have, and then work out a strategy to try and support them.
How does autism affect some people's daily lives?
So students who have autism can sometimes interpret situations differently. So that could be from even walking down the street, it could be interacting with people they might see. For some students with autism, situations can cause huge anxiety and can actually be the world can be quite a scary place for these students. Some students with autism, it can affect their senses, so they hear things that maybe appear louder than other people might hear, or the smell, or the way they even with their visual interpretation of something. So everyday life can be quite a scary place for those students. So it can affect them in a number of different ways. It can be quite difficult for them.
Is there anything the modern day society does for autistic people?
Yep, so here in Cornwall, those students who have autism, they have a number of different ways in which they can get support. So there's a number of different societies, groups that students can join. So we have something called the WAVE project, which tries to get students together, get them into surfing, which has been really successful. There are other groups called Aspire, which helps students get together. Those students who might have autism, they can share, share their troubles, and it's a really good opportunity to socialise in a really safe environment. So we have a number of different organisations that help support students with autism.
How does autism impact friendships?
So for students with autism, communication can be a really difficult thing, and interpreting social situations. So somebody with autism might interpret a certain situation completely differently to how somebody else might have interpreted the situation. So making friends can sometimes be a bit of a challenge because of the way they've interpreted the situation, or being able to communicate how they're feeling. It can be a real challenge. So a lot of the work we do in school based around social and communication skills helps those students with autism to interpret certain situations, reflect on maybe a difficulty that they've had, and to see it from a different perspective. But at the same time, it's also about sharing information about certain situations that students might find difficult.
Is there specialist autism schools in the UK?
Yes, there are. Yes, there are. There are centres around the UK where students go with autism. The only centre in Cornwall is at Liscard. It's an area resource centre, and students who have severe autism can go there, and they have a different timetable. They have a slightly different environment to the rest of the school. But yeah, there are centres around the UK.
And finally, one of our very own students at Bodmin College has won a prestigious award and the 7th annual World Pasty Championship. Here with a taste is Lewis.
It feels amazing to have come first. It was very unexpected.
How and when did you learn to make pasties?
I learned by my dad used to teach me and my brother to make them since we were little.
Is this your first time competing?
We've competed twice before, and I've come third in the traditional Cornish pasty before.
Do you enjoy the competition?
Yes, I do.
Why? Why do you?
Because it's a good chance to meet other people from lots of different places.
Thank you for your time.
Now over to Kai for the weather.
This is Kai, and today the forecast in Bodmin is dry but still a bit dull and cloudy with a cold breeze. It's 10 degrees at the moment, but it's meant to get colder today at 5 degrees. There is a 70% chance of rain, and later on it will be 80%. Also, the wind is quite strong, coming at 32 kilometers per hour. Gusts to 29, but it will be quite humid further into the evening. Tomorrow will be 10 degrees with a 40% chance of rain, with 20 kilometers per hour wind. Going into the evening, it will get colder at 2 degrees, but a higher chance of rain at 70%, with 22 kilometers per hour wind. On Saturday, it will be very cold at 4 degrees, with 70% chance of rain at a high 30 kilometers per hour wind. Going into the 28th into the evening, which will be very cold, going into the negatives at -4 degrees, with a small 10% chance of rain. Sunday will carry on being freezing cold at 1 degrees, but with a 20% chance of rain, with very strong winds at 36 kilometers per hour, but then going back into the negatives, with a -3, but no rain at all that night, with 20 kilometers per hour winds. Thank you, that's all today.
Thank you very much for watching.
Have a good evening.
Good night.
Good night.